Seriously, I just want to know, how on earth can we still be stuck on this same argument? Why, you ask? Oh, well, it's simple, because you simply refuse to admit that the sling is a superior weapon to the bow.
You and your womanly ranged weapons disgust me. The axe is the king of the battlefield.
Seriously, Trollo, you're just gonna completely disregard the ability to do damage from a distance?
Like a woman.
Trollo, please, you are embarrassing yourself. Axes are a peasant's weapon at best, maybe better for a lumberjack. Blunt damage is where it's at, sheer concussive force.
Armor for women.
Do you just constantly drink water to have that much saliva available?
There is no thing on earth you can trust more than a blade. You cannot trust in man, nor beast, but in steel, in this, you can trust.
Okay, hold on there, barbarian. Firstly, your sword is horribly designed. It's about as long as mine and probably 3 times the weight. Secondly, you don't need all that extra slashing power. All you need is 2 inches in the guts to get someone. That's enough to seal the deal. You're just wasting energy and efficiency, and really it's just, person, you're being awfully quiet in this conversation. Anything you want to add? With me? Well, that's quite simple. Because I don't have to say anything. Oh yeah? How do you mean? Well, because if you think about it, honestly, there's only been one weapon. It's been around since the dawn of mankind, used by all cultures and all people, and survived to the age of gunpowder. Oh, no, wait, don't answer. I know this one, I know this one. It's a rock-shaped hammer. Is it a rock-shaped hammer? That's right, Sir Gaines. A what? What on earth did you just say? What? No, that's silly, right? That sounds silly. Unless it's right. No, it's a spear. Oh, of course. A spear. You're a bit touched in the head, aren't you? No one touches my head. I'm far too fast. Shoot, I mean, yeah, I guess he's not wrong. A spear really has been the most prevalent weapon throughout all of human history. Yeah, all right, I guess that is true. That's a fair point.
Even I, the mighty Trollo. Again, I can't argue with that.
Ronan. Now, if all you've ever done is watch movies from Hollywood or cinema, you'd be forgiven for thinking that the sword or the bow was the king of the battlefield. But in reality, throughout history and all time, there has been only one king, and that has been the spear. Now, spears come in all different designs, length, sizes, different heads, but the first spear ever discovered or credited was the Clacton spear. And that was found in 1911, I think it was, in Essex. And that spear dated back to 400,000 BC. So early Neanderthal is what's attributed to it. It wasn't a point, it didn't have flint on it or anything. It was just a sharpened yew stick, and it was treated with fire, so the spearhead was harder. They weren't sure at first if it was in fact a spear. They thought it was an antler, or they weren't sure if it was used for a tool. But it was in 1994 and 1996 in Germany, they found a cave with 10 more of these spears in them, which were dated to the same time period or similar time period of the Clacton spear. The spears that were found in Germany were made out of pine and spruce. They originally were dated for the marine isotope period 10, and then it was revised later to 11. So that's kind of in that 400,000 to 300,000 ballpark. So a very similar time frame with a very similar weapon design across cultures and across continents. So it really gave validity to the idea that it was in fact a tool either used for hunting or defense. Ever since that time, humans have just been improving upon the spear. You would get a flint tip. You would get something that's a little longer. So here we have the dory, which is one used by the Greeks. So it's a longer spear and it has a counterbalance on the back. So you can actually hold it out further. If you're using one hand, you can use a shield with it a lot easier because you have the ability to thrust with it in there and not have as much exposure, or you don't have to break your posture as much with that. And then on the more specialized side, you have this pilum here, which was amazing for punching through armor or through wood. It could really take someone out of the fight, hit that shield. When I did the testing with this, it was really quite astounding how well it did against everything in the arsenal. Far performed any of the standard spears or javelins I had just by that design alone, which was really just, it's very cool. But the purpose of the video today is to talk about this spear here. This was sent to me very generously by Boar Spear. He has a shop on Etsy, so check him out. Now, in Scandinavian culture, there were these bogs where they would throw weapons into that were sacrificed, so to speak. They would like kill the weapons or sacrificial weapons because those had great value, and they would set those into the bog. This was discovered, and it's an exact replica of one that was found from the 4th century in Denmark. It has these really great engravings on it, and so it was preserved well, and he replicated that design for this specific spear. This is a good length. It doesn't have a weight in the back, but it's perfect for thrusting and for forms. And what I want to do with this one here is I want to go over a few different types of movements with the spear, test it, and also try and test and see different things with it, because you've probably seen as well with a spear are a few different forms with it, like hewing and things of that nature, trying to be accurate with it when you thrust as well, not overexposing, and also your footwork is going to be extremely important. Moving into a wall, and also the fan, where if you're behind someone, you fan and you go other side with it. So we're going to go over a couple of those things. Then I'm going to try and break some stuff. Now with the spear, it wasn't uncommon to work in teams with someone who might have a shield. So say someone's in front of you with a round shield, they have an axe, you have a spear. With that, you have a technique that you can use called a fan to keep people away from side to side. And as you can imagine, if someone comes to the right or left, it's a little difficult to go over, and you don't want to move it that way. So with that technique, it was called the fan, where you'd have an overhead grip with the spear. With this technique, you would thrust, and if someone came to the side, you would fan, and you would move other side. Fan, other side. And so you're able to stay mobile in there and cover those gaps relatively well and relatively quickly without exposing yourself or trying to knock your friend out. Stupid shield, it's windy. So if I'm here, for example, my max reach is about that far, right in there. So I'm not quite able to get the helmet without really leaning and breaking my posture. So if I'm coming in here, I had the ability to get really close, but I can't quite get that hit. So there's a few different techniques, aside from just stepping and taking that thrust. There is a little jab technique that's a really cool one that I've seen people use, where you're in here and you still twist and open up your body, but it's almost like you throw it out of your hand. And it's a great, just destructive little thing to nab someone. It's probably gonna catch them off guard. So if you're out of range, or so they think, out of my range here, I can throw that out, and I can probably step in and make a move there. So those are great different little fun things to try out. So we are now on to the weapons testing portion. What I'm going to do this time, as opposed to beef ribs, which I've usually been using, these are pork ribs here. So I'm going to set this up in two different ways, basically. I'm going to have one that's just the padded gambeson, and I'm going to have one that's going to be the padded gambeson plus the mail. I'm going to set them up on two individual targets. So one of the benefits as a spear, as you can imagine, is one person has the ability to keep multiple opponents at bay, as opposed to someone with just a short sword, where it's going to be harder to do that. They can keep that gap and keep those people back for fear of getting thrust at with that spear because of the extended reach. So I'm going to set these up, two different ones, two different armor types on two different dummies. See how it performs, because it's not going to be as bombastic as like an axe or a mace, but you just need a little bit into those ribs to make sure you got your point made. Opponents, we have our two opponents set up here with the ribs behind. We have the mail here, and of course, just the gambeson over there. So I'm going to try a couple different techniques and forms against those basic thrusts, and then I'm going to do the fan technique as if I'm moving between shield, and then the single-handed thrust as well, to see how they perform against that, and just kind of give an idea of the versatility and the range that this spear has. All right, so I'm gonna need to revise this test. Both of those things, even though I thought they were stable, are moving far too much. So I think I'm gonna set it up against the shield and then against the hay bale to give a little bit of a better feel for it. So just have to imagine there's two fierce warriors behind here. So here we have the mail, here we have just the padded gambeson. So I'm gonna try that again here, much more stable, and so I think be a better read. That worked better, so I'm encouraged by that. That'll be the test moving forward. This one here, I had a few strikes, and a lot of people asked about like soft tissue damage, right? What if it doesn't go all the way through? What would the soft tissue damage be? Well, you can see here, oh wow, first of all, we had that one through and through, so it actually went out the back there. The other two strikes were here and here, but the best one was right here and then actually poked out the back of it. So it made it through all the meat pretty easily. So that was a good strike. You can see the efficiency of that. And again, this is, you know, double layered, so it's quite a bit thicker as well. For the male, let's see here. For the male, okay, so yeah, we had one that went through. You can see where that struck in, hit the bone and bounced up as well. And it actually, oh wow. So, okay, so that actually broke the bone right there. Those strikes against the male, that actually broke the pig rib right there. So you can see that actually cracked it inside there. So even if the male does in fact stop it from going all the way through, it's cracking those ribs. A clean break right in here, so that rib broke in half from that solid thrust. So even if you have protective coating that's making it so it's not going all the way through, it's still with that thrust and that power, it's gonna crack some ribs. And one thing I wanna do is turn the ribs this way here and just get a straight thrust into it to see how easily it cracks through the bones and the ribs as well, because you know, it's not that different from us, so. So that was exceptionally easy, and I don't know if you can hear it over the audio, but you can hear the ribs pop as it passes through. So, oh geez. So that went through here, that cracked into it, and you can see 1, 2 ribs, and it's just, you know, just blew through it like it wasn't even there. So if you were unfortunate enough to get caught without armor and someone got a straight thrust into your ribs, that's gonna go. I mean, that went all the way to here, I would say. So that's a real bad day. So what I want to do now is the fan technique. So that's gonna be an overhand grip. That's gonna be a thrust, fan, and thrust. So I'm gonna try and move to 2 different targets and see how well I can keep that accuracy, because with the spear, like anything, it's all about practicing so you can get it exactly where you want it to go. So there's one thing you can see that's really cool about just being able to move place to place and having someone with a shield in front of you. So it's gonna be like getting behind that tank almost in a game, right? They're gonna be the tank, and you can change positions and quickly execute a blow that would be fatal to either side. And like you just saw in the previous test, even if you had chainmail on, that's gonna crack a rib if it's a sternum shot or anywhere in the ribs. So really, I mean, dude, I don't think anyone's surprised, but it's always fun just to get out here and do some stuff like that. And one thing that you can see that's super evident is just how protective a layer of cloth can be. Because with those, you know, you saw it was not making that deep of a penetration. It was going in well, obviously, and it went through the back, but without that going through this meat here, it's like it's not even there, right? Like when I thrust, it was just very surprising, and that right here is just breaking ribs as it hits them as well. So even just like layered linen can be such a game changer for someone who has that versus someone who does not. So I want to practice the accuracy of that thrust punch. So from here, you can easily see I'm well outside the range of the spear towards that as well. So without stepping, I'm outside the range, but I want to try and see if I can punch that in there, that one hand. Yes. So that's just an example of practicing that technique, right? Because when you're doing something like that, you're extending quite a bit, you're breaking your posture, you are opening yourself up for a counter if you miss, but you can be relatively accurate and add like 1.5 foot to your lethal range by just flicking something like that out there. Now, I really want to use Boromir for this test, but unfortunately he is unresponsive today. He needs a bit of care. So this one's going to be a collarbone strike. So what I want to try here is actually a strike with the spear. It's not uncommon to have that. So if you have the spear, you thrust, you can in fact come around and smash down with it. So this is sharpened. I sharpened it the other day, so it's got a good edge on it. So I'm going to come down an unprotected collarbone, and then I'm going to cover it up and see if I can still break it underneath all the layers with a spear strike. So that was as clean can come for the cut goes. That was just straight through the middle. Didn't really have any resistance at all. When bones are dead, they do get harder but more brittle, so it's not a true one-to-one. But now I'm gonna put it underneath the padded gambeson or linen and see if I can crack it that way. So here's the first bone here, it cut it clean in two. The second one here, it did not cut it in two, but you can see it very clearly broke that bone. So there was no issue with that. So if that were to come down on a collarbone, even if it was protected, it's gonna crack that thing. Collarbones are notoriously weak. If anyone's broken them, they know that. That slashing strike right there, you're not gonna wanna lead with that, but it is a good follow-up. If you have an opening, it still can cause really impressive damage. As I'm sure you are well aware, the spear was often paired with a shield. This is a larger shield, it's heavier duty. I have a nicer, newer one down there, but this one's just got so much character. I like to bring it out when I can if I'm not hitting it. So what I wanna do now is I wanna try and see with this here, if I'm able to still be accurate with that single-handed thrust as well against that meat target. As you can imagine, that wasn't far too difficult. However, the one thing that is interesting, that as opposed to the door that's got a counterballast in the back, you really have to choke it up quite a bit to not overextend yourself. So you have to be much closer to the head of the spear in order for it to work well. You can still kind of throw it out there if you want to, I guess, but that's probably pretty risky. And then just kind of for the gore factor, let's call it, I have this spear here as well, which has got that more of a leaf shape to it. I want to just try and slash downwards on this thing here and see what I can do, just because I think it'll look cool in slow motion. So that happened pretty quick, and I'll get a slow-mo cam one of these days, but you can see that probably went through 1, 2, 3 ribs and just cut them completely, right? So that's just, the body is not meant to take that kind of abuse. It's the best thing I can say. I mean, that's not made for slashing, but obviously this has a pretty decent slashing head. It's got a curve in it, and that did quite well. Whoa, goodness gracious, that's horrible. So the spear on a whole is meant to go around a shield, over a shield, under a shield, not into a shield. I'm sure it did happen though, so what I want to check now and see is with this newer wood here, this newer shield, if I can thrust through that with this spear as well. The tip is still doing pretty good. I think it dulled a little bit on those bones, but I want to see if I can get it through there. Nope, I would say the shield did its job quite well. You can see the strikes here and here, and what's interesting is those are actually kind of the thrusting technique, which is closer to a throw. And when you throw a spear, you do generate more inertia, momentum, and energy. When I just did the two-handed thrust, it could be a technique problem on my part, but those ones were not able to punch enough through to push into the back. But those other two here certainly were. So you can see right here, that was the two-handed thrust. Those ones, there's no real markers on it here, but the ones that were the single-handed thrust forward, that was here and here. So I was able to punch into it a bit, but not enough to go all the way through. Well, everybody, I hope you enjoyed. As always, I had a great time out here. Special thanks again to Boarcraft. I said it wrong in the beginning, so I apologize for that. Boarcraft, they are the ones who sent me this ever so generously. It was a ton of fun. If you guys already saw at the beginning of the week, I was with Unsubscribed on their podcast. I went on there with admin and met all those guys, had a great time. It was so much fun. And one thing they did say is, dude, you gotta post on a schedule. You have to do it. I'm like, okay. So I'm gonna start posting Saturdays at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. For that, I'm gonna just kind of get a regimented schedule going so people don't miss it, because a lot of people said they have been missing the videos. So that's my new plan going forward, Saturday at 9. So I hope you enjoy this. Special thanks again to Boarcraft and, for Unsub for having me on there. We had a great time nerding out. That'll come out sometime in the next week or two, I think. But as always, have a good one, have fun, and have a great adventure.